Okay, so serotonin is a remarkably important neurotransmitter system, critical for psychological health and mood states. And, we go a lot deeper into the serotonergic system in other classes, including psychopharmacology, obviously, but also because there are many therapeutic drugs, that have been designed to, act at serotonin, receptors or other serotonin targets, psychedelic drugs actually it turns out act, at a very specific subtype of serotonin receptor known as the 5-HT2A receptor. But serotonin, for this class we're going to talk about it. It's a, critical classical neurotransmitter. It was one of those that was, explored and investigated early. It is a monoamine neurotransmitter, so it's, synthesized from an amino acid, however, not from tyrosine like dopamine and norepinephrine. So it's not a catecholamine. Serotonin is a monoamine, but it's actually a different kind of monoamine than the catecholamines. It's actually, referred to as an indolamine because it has a very distinctive ring structure called the indole ring. And, it has an odd, kind of sort of shorthand designation too. It's not as clear, as like, for example, DA for dopamine or ACH for acetylcholine. It's actually 5-H-T, and that's because the chemical name for serotonin is actually 5-hydroxytryptamine. But yet serotonin is the term that's often utilized even in research papers, etc., because actually, most serotonin, like 90% of it, is not in the central nervous system at all. It's actually in the blood, the gut. It's actually in the periphery. Serotonin, it tones the blood, right? It has a lot to do with constriction of vessels and things like this. So serotonin's a really interesting neurotransmitter. It's, most of it is actually outside the brain, yet it has such a tremendous impact over, psychological health and mood. So it is synthesized from tryptophan in a two-step enzymatic process. So the two enzymes, the first that is expressed in, serotonergic cells is tryptophan hydroxylase, which will grab onto the tryptophan and convert it into the intermediate product. This is called hydroxytryptophan, or 5-HTP, and the second, synthesizing enzyme expressed in serotonergic neurons is called 5-HTP decarboxylase, and it'll grab the 5-HTP and convert it into serotonin or 5-HT or 5-hydroxytryptamine. And 5-HT receptors, there's about 15 of them that have been identified. The majority of them are metabotropic. However, there is one ionotropic receptor. They're the site of action for many mood-altering drugs, including LSD, for example, psychedelic drugs. And the neurons, like the other, modulatory transmitters, have a brainstem source. So there are nuclei in the brainstem that are called the raphe nuclei. And these manufacture serotonin or 5-hydroxytryptamine, 5-HT, and their axons extend out of the brainstem into other areas of the brain and release the 5-HT or serotonin there, including areas in the frontal lobe. And so the raphe nuclei are the brainstem source for serotonin release in the rest of the brain.